Today we're going to be talking about the USCIS's change to require interviews, in-person interviews, and why that's actually happening. Does this affect you? That's what we're going to be talking about in this episode. Alright, so before we get started, I'm going to hold any kind of chat or questions until the very end because this shouldn't take more than about 5 minutes for me to explain what's going on. I'm very cautious when it comes to news that's coming in, specifically in regard to the Trump administration, because there's a lot of fake news out there, as you guys know, on both sides of this. And I'm not trying to be partisan, but on the liberal side, there's lots of stuff coming out against the administration, and then on the conservative side there's a lot of stuff propping up the Trump administration. I'm just about facts, and that's what you're about to hear right now. So first of all, is this real? Is the extreme vetting going to affect you? Does it affect green card holders? And the answer to that is yes, and here's the proof right here. Here's the USCIS's Gov website. Now, whenever you hear news about this or that, or how it's affecting your country or whatever, you always need to double check the facts with the actual government sites. And in this case, we're going to go to USCIS.gov. And as you can see, one of their actual top one that was released on August 28th is USCIS to expand in-person interviews requiring certain permanent resident applicants. All right, so here's the whole article right here. So it's confirmed this is real. Now, it goes into effect. What's happening right now? Okay, what is this all about? What they're going to do is they're going to require an in-person interview for certain green card, permanent resident green card holders. All right, so who are they requiring, and when is this going to go into effect? So right here, let's just go ahead and highlight this so you can see when this goes into effect. October 1st is when this actually, the first phase of requiring interviews to happen. So right now, because this could change tomorrow for all we know, but right now they only require this for adjustment of status applicants, applications based on employment. So if you came here on, let's say, H-1B visa, which is an employment type visa, and there's a few other types, right? You came here on an employment visa, but now you want to become a permanent resident, so you don't have to, at the very least, you don't have to keep renewing your visa. Your permanent resident is going to be for 2 years or 10 years or whatever kind you get, and you file a I-485 adjustment of status application to get that green card. Well, now you're going to be required to do an interview, right? Makes sense. Really, they say it's extreme vetting, and this is all new, but 10 years ago, I want to say about 10 years ago, they had to do it anyway. So now they're just basically bringing that law back. Refugees are the other folks who are affected by this. Refugees, people who seek asylum in the United States, their relatives petition. Let me see. Let's go ahead and just read it here before I screw this up. Refugees, asylees, relative petitions. So these guys are also affected. That being said, if you're a K-1 visa holder like Yuri, like us, we applied for this adjustment status, but we're K-1. This doesn't really apply to us, but we actually did have the interview, and most people that I know of do have the interview for the K-1. So is this new? I mean, we actually expected to have the interview anyway. I know a couple people who didn't have to have the interview. Right now, this law doesn't affect us, K-1 visa or spousal visa people that are going for the adjustment of status. And this is confirmed right here on this site. And that's basically it, guys. Let's just sum it up. So whenever you see news out there, anything, any kind of news, even if it sounds legit, even if you agree with it, whether you agree with it or not, always just double check it. Something's happening here in the U.S. where people do not want to talk. People want to stay in their little bubble. They do not want to hear facts. And that shouldn't be you, especially if you're going through this process with your spouse or your relatives or whatever your case is. Don't buy into the rhetoric. I mean, if that's what you believe in, okay, believe that, but also get some facts in there. Double check for yourself. Go to the actual government sites. Use 2 or 3 different references. Like the first place I heard this was from somebody who on the Visa Approved group. They said, "Hey, Bruce, this is what's going on. This could affect you." And I was like, "Whoa, this sounds like it might affect Yuri." So I read into it, and it found out it actually doesn't affect Yuri. Maybe in the future when they change the policy, which I believe that they will they're going to try to keep ratcheting it down, but that's neither here nor there because it hasn't happened yet. But then I checked it out, and I went to the site, and I saw this here. I read through it, and then I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, sometimes they put this spin on it. So I read another news article about it, and sure enough, it's real. And getting the details, it only applies to people who are here for work or people who are asylum seekers or refugees. That's what it actually applies to. And it already, 10 years ago, we already had this. So how extreme is it if we already had it? So that's the facts, guys. It takes effect October 1st. That being said, let's go ahead and open this thing up to questions. Let's see who's out there, who's talking to us. Maybe nobody, maybe somebody. I see Veronica out there. Veronica Dip, how you doing? Just talking about visa stuff, so I'm going to try to keep it to just visa questions, just green card questions, things like that. Do you guys have any questions about this? I can tell you what I've read, but remember, this is not advice from a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. I do not want to be a lawyer. I do not want to be a consultant. I'm not your consultant. But there's definitely services out there that you can use for that. This is just my opinion on something that I feel is important. Veronica says, what's going on that article you talked about? Oh, so Veronica, what's going on? If you're just arriving here, what's going on with it is that USCIS is implementing a mandatory interview for green card holders. This is only affecting people who are refugees or people who came to the U.S. just for work. So that's usually H-1B is the only one I'm familiar with. H-2B and H-1B, that's who it affects. Basically, the law is saying you must have an interview prior to getting your green card, right? So it actually doesn't, this law, this new policy that came from the Trump administration does not actually affect you or I who are going through the green card process. Veronica says, will it affect me? I'm currently going, no, it won't. Veronica is going through a green card from K1. She was a K1 holder, meaning she came here as a fiance, and now she's going for her green card. This doesn't affect you, Veronica. Anyway, even if they have an interview, you should be prepared for it. So for us, for those of you who don't know, for K1 fiance visa holders, we sometimes get the interview and sometimes we don't. So you should already be prepared for the interview anyway. And they'll usually tell you in the mail that your interview is at this time and we need you to do this thing, this or that thing. So, okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay, I live in the Caribbean, so I'm not affected, but it's useful info. Okay, yep, I don't think it affects you. You're not, unless you're an asylum seeker, a refugee, or you came here on job visa, which is H-1B. Any other questions about this before we close out this particular session? All of this information, by the way, is going on the Visa Approved group so that those guys can focus on their own process and not worry about stuff like this. And I just decided to do it because I know that a lot of the news is like really volatile and people want to pick sides and they want to believe. People are holding on to these beliefs and it affects their perspective on what's going on. And it's always important to cut through the fact, get straight to the facts. Is this real? Number one, right? Use several different sources to figure out if it's real. And then you want to know, okay, what are the details? Does it affect me? And read it. Go to the government sites. Don't be lazy on this because this is your life we're talking about, right? If you're especially if you're the permanent resident. And Veronica says, okay, Bruce, got my NOA 1, just waiting for my biometric letter in the mail. Yep, so you're on your way right there, Veronica. So if there's no other questions, let me see if there's anything going on Facebook where I'm posting this. My main audience here. Don't see anything on the Visa Approved group. No questions. About 3 people watching. So I think that we've covered everything we need to cover for this particular topic. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and terminate this. Make sure if you're watching this later time, if you want to get more news on this, if you want more information on visa approved type stuff, green card issues, EAD cards, adjustment of status, then make sure you like and subscribe. Turn on post notifications, because this is the kind of information that we put out. And we'll see you guys another time.